bring the normal session of our school board meeting for the Richmond Exempted Village School District back in the regular session. And the first item to continue the agenda is the approval of the agenda. So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Duval?
Yes.
Ms. Fraser?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes. Okay, recognition, school update, and awards.
Mr. Stewart, I'll invite you to hand out your Beth Webster Leading Line Award.
I'll be honored. Hi everyone, good evening. It is my pleasure this evening to discuss one of our fine students at the high school, Miss Rosalind Davis. We're seeing with the parents tonight. When I first heard about this idea, I thought it was a really, really neat thing for our kids. So Rosalind came up with this wonderful plan last year, beginning of this year, I'm sorry, called the Fifth Quarter. And it is a place where, after our football games, where our students can go and hang out. It's at a local church, and they can have some positive experiences and fun activities and interactions. As you know, our games are attended by a whole lot of students from all of our schools in the district. But when the game's over, where do those students go? And a lot of our teenagers sometimes are left to their own devices at Friday nights. This gives them a positive and safe space to hang out. There's some activities, some games, some fellowship that goes on there as well. And she just started this year. She's hoping to expand it next year during the football season. So I thought it was a great place and a great service for our students in the district to give them a nice place to hang out after our football games on Friday night. So it's my pleasure to nominate Rosalind Davis. Come on up, Rosalind. Very much. There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Parents can come in too if you want to get a picture out.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Congratulations. Good job.
Mr. Stewart, if you want to stand there.
Sure.
And you can go ahead and Mr. Shanklin will put up your presentation and you can share your school update.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to highlight two things this evening to come out of the high school. Our first celebration is I took a little bit of some of our advanced placement data. As you guys know, our advanced placement courses are courses where students can take college credit. They take the national exam at the end of the year, and a score of 3 or higher gets them a passing grade and college credit for that course. So I went back and looked at the last 5 years of our AP data to give you a little bit of context on how we're trending. My first year here in 2021, we had 31 students take an AP exam. This past year we had 144. That should be a lot higher. Truth be told, the AP psychology exam, the national website went down last year for like 3 hours. So a lot of seniors didn't get to take the exam on its original date. The makeup date happened to coincide with their graduation practice on the following Friday morning. So seniors had the option, but they came to the graduation practice. That should be around 160. Average scores have gone up. It's trending up from 2.7 to 3.1, which is a passing score overall. Our passage rate is going up. The huge highlight here is the number of 5s that we had in the past year. So we went from 2 AP classes to 8 this year, and we had 16 students get a perfect score of a 5 on our AP exams across the board. Outstanding. Do you want to go to the next slide, please, Gar? Our next slide is just the 8 AP classes that we offer and a highlight from each one. I won't read all of those to you. But if I can focus on the bottom row, AP Government, we had 36 students take the AP Government test, and 9 of those students scored a perfect 5. That is extremely high for one AP class. Mr. Monaco's doing a great job getting those kids ready, but we have a passing score for average for all of our AP courses that we offer at the high school. So I'm very proud of that, and the students are working hard, our staff are working hard to get those kids through, and it's a lot of scholarship money those kids are getting for getting college credit for those courses too. So that's a great celebration for us at the high school. The next thing I want to talk about, I'm so proud of this, it's our academic and career fair. This will be our 3rd year doing it at the high school. We're doing it on March 5th. This came up because of an idea of our senior pathways at the high school. It's either enroll, enlist, employ. You want every senior to be on one of those pathways. So when they leave us, they're ready and prepared and engaged to go into their careers after high school. And we looked at ways to engage them during this day. The biggest reason is to inform their decision making, and that's twofold. One is to give them support and ideas on which pathway they want to take as they go through the high school, either college, military, or careers. And also to make sure they're informed of the classes that they're taking. A lot of students just sign up for classes and they have no idea what the class is about. So we kind of use that. We use the whole day. We take the morning. It's about 3 hours in the morning, and we bring in all the students grades 8 through 11, and we platoon them in their grade level bands, and then in smaller grade level groups, and they go through and they meet with all the grade level teachers. So the 10th grade students meet with the 11th grade teachers, and they go through every 11th grade course in our course catalog. So all of our incoming freshmen, sophomores, and juniors get explained about the rigor and the expectation, homework level of every single class that we teach in our catalog. So that way they can make informed choices of the classes they want to take. Plus, if they're going to college, they have to know what specific math or science courses they have to take if they're going to a certain program like nursing. That's kind of what the morning looks like. We have 100% staff engagement. All of our staff meet with all of our students, grades 8 through 11, as we go over our course selections for the following year. The midday, which is our lunch portion, we bring in some sources of strength activities there. It's our student-led positive support groups. So all of our students, grades 8 through 11, they have touch points with their sources of strength campaigns. They'll do a 30-minute lunch and an hour activity in that 90-minute loop for our lunch. So there's some positive interaction as well with our peer-led groups for sources of strength. At the end of the day, we bring in our career fair and military reps for the third part of the day. We bring in local businesses, we bring in military reps from all the branches, and we bring in some college reps as well. We had 28 businesses last year. We had everything from engineering to IT. We had FBI in there last year, and the kids loved it. So they get exposed to every single pathway they can choose by the time they're a senior. And our job is to give them support and information and guidance so they know which path to be on by the time they're a senior, and when they graduate, they are set up for success as well as they go through there. So it's not just a day of exploration, but a day of engagement. So we're in year 3. It is a hugely successful day with positive feedback from our staff and our kids when we have the expo day. And our next one is scheduled for March 5th. Here coming up soon. So it's a great day for our students. Yeah. You guys have any questions about that?
Good deal.
No, it's great. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
And I will touch on our employees of the month during my presentation.
Good. All right, so that's it for that section. All right, next up is public participation. So Jeremy Boswell is you have 3 minutes to address the board, and start by stating your name and giving us your address, please.
My name's Jeremy Boswell. Local part of the community here. We've been here for almost 20 years. My wife actually is an alumni. She graduated from New Richmond. Was the girls wrestling coach. I was appointed to the head coach this year. I've been the youth coach for quite some time. I organized the 501c3 that is supporting the wrestling system, or the wrestling community at large. I'm sure that you guys are aware of the cases that have been surrounding the wrestling team, and I haven't gotten much closure to that. I was let go from that position, and as I tried to get clarification on that matter, the response that I consistently got from leadership, and I fully stuck to the chain of command from the beginning. You know, I reached out to the AD at first. I actually reached out to the principal. I've spoken to the superintendent multiple times. It's an ugly situation that no one wants to be part of. And my goal here today is to gain closure for my family, and hopefully for the community at large. No man ever wants to be associated with something that can be perceived to be inappropriate act with a minor, period. And I'm just not the type of person that's going to stand for that. I'm not going to stand complacent and as if I played any part in that whatsoever. And by my association, by being a coach on that team, And the way that I was relieved of my job associated with me with something that I'm not willing to stand for. And so I've done my best. I've done as much diligence as I can to ask my name to be publicly cleared. You know, our school, not the school board, but our school system doesn't have much trouble reaching out to outside reporters, speaking with Chris Hicks, and putting these sort of things out into the world. The opportunity to clear my name when I've done nothing but serve my community. I don't believe that this investigation has been properly read. I don't believe that our system has gone through this and seen exactly what happened. If you were to read this entire, and I have one printed for each of you, I think this requires diligence. It's affected my life and my family's life and our community's life negatively. And everybody comes to some assumptions that what could be happening, and that's just simply untrue. To me, to let this go away, which everybody's ignored me, not returned phone calls, shooed me away, I'm not the person that's going to take that. I just can't. And that's why I brought my family today, because I want my sons to grow up to be men that are strong enough to stand in an uncomfortable position and defend their name. And I've served this community and this country honorably my entire life. And I'm not going to stand idle and watch this happen. I held a kid accountable for bullying. And if you read this entire report, you'll see it spelled out very, very clearly from an unbiased source, which is the Sheriff's Department. And you'll see that there's a kid on the team.
You got about 15 seconds, sorry. So.
Would you mind if I wrap? I mean, and
I'll give you 30 seconds. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
If you would read this thing completely, you would see that I held a child accountable for bullying another child, and then I was marked. And then when we had a conversation with the child about her actions and the way she was handling herself on the team, there was an absolute fabrication. There's no truth to what this kid accused me of. Now, the other coach I have no association with whatsoever, and I'm not going to comment to any of that, but I know definitively that I acted as an honorable man. I asked the kid what was wrong. 9 months later, I was the 5th coach that this parent and this child has run up a flagpole, and no one took any account of that whatsoever. So I'm going to give each one of you these, if that's okay. My hope is to close this in a civil manner. I've served this community, and I don't want to take this any further. I don't want it to cost the board any more money. I don't want it to cost me anything else whatsoever. The thing that I'm asking for is for my name to be publicly cleared, period. I have had nothing to do, did the best job I could do serving this community. And I'm here to stand up. If we allow people to say things that are untrue and there are no consequences, that's a dangerous place for every single person in this room. And I'm telling you, God's honest truth, that I did nothing to harm this child or treat her unfairly. And I should not be associated with it whatsoever. And I've asked you humbly to please publicly clear my name.
We'll give it to the other board members too.
I appreciate that, man. I asked you to read it. The last 2 pages, it's a tough read. No one wants to read these things. I didn't. The last 2 pages, I left it in order, are very telling. It really kind of paints that entire story.
Give me the other 2, I can give that to the other board members.
I have one more over there as well. I'd like to give you another one. I sent one to you, but I'm not sure if you got it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. All right. Superintendent's report.
For the month of February, as we move on, obviously not able to be with us tonight, want to recognize Kelsey Jones. Kelsey, as shared, we did our marigolds. Those are the staff members that look after our newest employees, whether they're a new teacher or new to our district, and she was recognized by 3 staff members in her building as being that marigold, and really being that powerful voice, helping them get through this transition year. And then, as you may know, almost a 40-year employee, Jimmy Hedrick. Jimmy was taken aback to be nominated. He shared that In his 40 years with the district, he had never been recognized for his hard work, and he, really was the spirit behind many of those who helped us get through the snow and the icy conditions. And he's also instrumental in keeping us just going every day. It's a luxury to have a small maintenance department, and he has a history of the district, and he is able to take care of all of the things that maybe someone new wouldn't have the history of. He knows the last time it was fixed, when it needs to be fixed again, and he is really championed by his peers across the district. So
Well, he's training his replacement.
he is training his replacement. Just want to give everybody an update. It's been about a week and a half since we last looked at our hours. Just looking okay at the moment. We have about 3 days left, calamity days, before we fall under the state hours for our seniors. And then if we choose to use remote, we kind of double that number to almost 6 full days. Our elementary looks a little better, but remember that what is required in the length of day for elementary is shorter, as you can see there. So, we require 910 hours across the course of the schedule for our elementary, and then 1,001 for 6 through 12. So looking good. We'll now shift from looking at snow to looking at the hydrograph to make sure, what the levels of the river will look like as we transition into spring. And then just some things high level. We will have, Garth will share, Mr. Shanklin will share a little bit about some workforce development, especially with our 16 through 20-year-olds, and then adult ed beyond that, that we will be soliciting some feedback from our community. Monroe Elementary will be applying to get a circle-tailed dog. That dog will be sponsored through a $7,500 reduction in fees through Circle-Tail. And then the Ben Morrison Foundation has awarded Monroe Elementary the other $2,500. And the PTO has graciously agreed to sponsor the dog's care, vet, and meds, yearly meds. So Monroe Elementary will be welcoming our first facility dog for the district. So we will do a press release with Ben Morrison Foundation and some of their branding, but it is certainly a wonderful thing to get that $2,500 grant. We were awarded additional money through Stronger Connections, Title IV. So we have been meeting with a core group of 6th grade parents. One of the things that we are looking at starting is a parent series. So we will be using this additional money that we are awarded from the Stronger Connections for the parent series, either through Counseling Source or Child Focus, because those are after hours. And then we will also be using the money to continue our PBIS work in year 2 at the middle school. So it's a nice chunk of change, and will offset any costs that the district would have seen from doing both of those events. Dr. Hollingsworth and Mr. Wolf will be leading our artificial intelligence working group. Tonight you'll do a first reading of our AI policy, and this team will really be looking at the guardrails and the ways that we should enhance the educational experience by using AI. It's here, it's not going away. And then the other thing is to what are the things that we want to restrict. So for example, we have Google Gemini, but it doesn't go below 13 years old. So some AI doesn't, it's not usable for students under a certain age. And then Dr. Hollingsworth completed our vocational middle school courses training with our teachers this past PD Day. That's important because it lets us access the money through Grant Vocational School, their vocational programming. That will allow us to access some money in upwards over 100, maybe all the way up to $200,000. So our fine arts courses looked at their pacing guides and standards, and they're already doing about 90% of the work that's really required. But it stretches to that area where we talk about what does a career in the vocal area of music, what does a career in instrumental music, it allows those arts, even 2D and 3D, what does it look like and what do careers look like beyond the high school, post-secondary experience. So those are the bigger things, and again, they involve the team. So the team is working really hard on these new opportunities. So I'd like to invite Dr. Hollinsworth up just to talk a little bit about the instructional coaching that's happening in all of our sites.
Thanks for the opportunity to share some of our instructional celebrations from our buildings. Our teachers have revised all their core content areas over the past 4 years, ELA, math, science, social studies. They are now shifting to working really hard to implement the new curriculum and also to continually improve the instructional classroom experiences for our students. So I'd like to just highlight at Locust Corner Elementary, we have been working with teachers in each of the buildings through their building data teams to learn to identify any gaps in our student achievement. And Megan Smith, 4th grade ELA and social studies teacher at Locust Corner, uses data to identify the ELA skill gaps with her ELA students, and together created activities that strengthened those skills while they were learning social studies content. And so just have a few pictures of her doing that in her classroom. At the middle school and high school ELA level, our teachers have been working to use Gemini to do a data protected custom chatbot that is tasked with acting as an educator and grading some of the students' ELA work and writing work in preparation for the Ohio State test, which will be really valuable because when teachers or individuals as ELA secondary English teachers, we grade student writing. We grade that through our own filter, but to have the students be able to see how the OST graders are going to grade it is really valuable. And they're working really hard to learn to do that. At Monroe Elementary, Mr. Stock, who's a 1st grade teacher, his students are in that first picture identifying mystery words through their open court program. Erica Halke's students are searching for resources to prepare for their Viking journey, which is in their CKLA, ELA program, very hands-on. And our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math and ELA teachers are asking great questions and using the OST readiness assessment data to better prepare and understand what the students know leading up to state testing. So they've developed OST readiness assessments that they're giving to the students in preparation for that. And it grades them, and then the students and the teachers get that information back. Our high school and middle school mathematics highlights. This slide really highlights the power of teacher-created and teacher-led professional development. This past Friday we had our professional development day, and at our secondary level, the high school and middle school data team asked and really proposed what they wanted their morning to look like. And they and the math team at the high school and middle school who have been using some assessments and these OST assessments created their own full morning. And the teachers were involved in 4-session professional learning series that was designed by the data team. And the sessions modeled effective instructional strategies, emphasized using student data to guide teaching, and provided practical support for the teachers to be able to use the Cambium Ohio assessment system to prepare students for those tests. It was amazing to watch the teachers lead that. It's easy for us to do it because we're used to doing it, but for teachers to lead their colleagues in that level of professional development is just a high level of professional organization and strength, because it's a little scary. They did an amazing job. And then finally with our gifted COGAT assessments, the 2nd and 4th grade students at Locust Corner and Monroe and parents all received an accompanying letter that described and explained all of the results from the COGAT assessments. And then we identified a few students who had some missing scores. Those students were retested, and we were able to identify an additional student. So we have a total of 9 new students identified with superior cognitive identifications this year, which is really high for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know we had some don't know, we had some questions last month about school funding and the legislature's current trajectory and appetite for change to the formula. And what we have seen really is a legislature that's gone after districts who are on the 20 mil floor. We are not. However, Mr. Floyd would tell you, through each property reevaluation year, as our property values go up, we slowly slip back towards that 20 mil floor, and that was sort of the low threshold. You had to collect 20 mils. And then we've also seen this idea of inside millage, which normally is called unvoted millage. So for us, that's about 1.6 million. It used to grow at the same rate that property reevaluations grew at. So for our local folks, that was over 30% the last time I think there was a reevaluation in Claremont County. And that will now go to a measure of inflation. So there's just been a slow rollback of loopholes, and if you think about a district that was on the 20 mil floor and they saw a 30 mil, a 30% spike in their property values, they would collect that 30% unvoted. That's not us. And the other thing is in here, the County Budget Commission now has the ability to modify levies and trim millage rates. And we have a meeting, Mr. Floyd and I, next week, through Jeff Weir at the Claremont County Educational Service Center to talk a little bit and learn from the Budget Commission. We have typically not seen them or had to see them, but to let them know where we are. We cannot afford a single dollar less than what we currently get. And then I think it's also important to look at, the legislature, they're all very different when it comes to their ideas. Here's one I just want to highlight, Senate Bill 93. It's about a year old. We are in the current same legislative session as last year. I know that sounds funny, but they actually carry forward in their 2-year term. So, here's another idea, what do you chase? Do you chase what's being acted on, or do you chase what's being proposed? Senate Bill 93 really was looking at a state centralized funding model. And what was interesting is it would take away all local school levies. It implements a new state tax, so they would basically move everybody to 20 mils, individual property owners, and increase the sales tax to 1.75%, bringing the total sales tax to 7.5%. And then Senator Brenner's idea was the funding follows the student. So that would generate for us at $11,535, it would generate over 20 million. I just want to share, I know for the 5 people that watch at home, the average state amount is $8,100. We're currently getting of that base cost $1,800. And as our property values climb, we will at some point be down to $800. We're not, the dependence on the local property tax owner is what the legislature has done. So anything that the legislature is doing is fixing a problem that they self-created. And then I did like this piece, the testing for all. As you know, our kids in public schools are exposed to all levels of accountability. That same level of accountability does not always translate into private, charter, or community schools. Some drawbacks of Senate Bill 93 was loss of revenue. You as a board, I'm not really sure what your mechanism would be. If you got 21 million from the state, you added that to your federal and you were 3 million short, I don't know what that mechanism would be for you to make that shortfall up. Transportation would be moved to the ESC. Our ESC is very bare bones here in Claremont County. So, that was another drawback that would end the Ed Choice scholarships. You think about it right now, that the money follows the kids. So whether you went here, a private or a parochial, that 11,000 would follow the kid, no longer needing Ed Choice. And then really there are lots of districts that have debt. We don't. We have a $160,000 payment each year for an energy loan that we're making. It's far surpassing what we conserve in energy. So the reason there's a stalled car there is this is what we experience from the legislature. This is Senator Brenner. This is an idea he throws out there. He hearings scheduled. So what do you chase? We're uncertain at times, and they are not coalesced around anything. I think there's general concern in Columbus, if I can read the tea leaves correctly, about the abolishment of property tax. And how do they, as a legislature, make up the 20-some billion dollars that has to go out to the localities and areas that levy those property taxes. On top of that, we are also monitoring bills that, have to do with the teaching of the success sequence. We have monitoring of bills where, we chose not to sign on to the voucher lawsuit. I don't know if you saw that there is House Bill 671 has been proposed for anybody that is in the voucher lawsuit. They're going to hold their money, and escrow is what this bill is proposing. So we've got a lot out there that we really not sure, and most of these require the district to invest money. One of them is computer science. Every child will complete a unit of computer science for graduation. Are they paying for that training? Are they paying for the curriculum? Another one is career exploration, which we do at the middle school, but requiring middle schoolers to complete a half unit of career exploration. We're actually ahead on that one. But if you're a smaller district or you don't have that, how are you paying for that? So they propose a lot of things that are counterintuitive to us getting smaller and nimbler. So we chase a lot, we listen. This legislative session probably will be very busy. They've just really ramped up, but most of them I think are up for re-election again in November. I think all the houses, yeah. So it's a busy time. Everybody's out getting endorsements, and there probably won't be any serious movement. And I think on school funding, and we have a gubernatorial race where there is very differing opinions on public schools and property tax. So I think what you will see is a holding pattern and probably a very furious, session on the other side of the election for the next biennium budget. So those are the things. You just don't know what to chase, and it always just kind of stalls out. So those are the items that we're following and watching from the legislature.
Thank you. That's your report, right?
That is my report.
Okay. Now we're talking the treasurer's report, right?
All right, it's my night tonight. So I'm going to try to keep the regular monthly updates trimmed because we're going to go to the forecast in more detail. So as we look through the fiscal year to date through January, a couple of things here, just the agenda items overview. You can go back one. Go ahead, actually, sorry. So we have our prior meeting minutes as usual, fiscal year to date through January. And right now, when we get to that slide where it talks about the current projected expenses and revenues, that's what's tied to the forecast we're presenting tonight. So this is those weird moments of the year where we're taking a whole new set of numbers compared to last, which we'll see. So we will see some differences there. We have the contracts for approval. That's the bus lease agreement and then the Allison Hill agreement, which we discussed at the last work session as well. A few disposal items, the unused vehicles, so nothing new there. We do have one then and now invoice. It's another straggler from the Claremont Board of DD. There's actually a bill from September that never made its way to us. So it's just another duplicate of the one we approved at last month's meeting. So not something we wouldn't have ordinarily done in the course of business, but it's well before the purchase order date. So that's the only reason it has to come to you for that purpose for approval. Then of course we'll get into the February 26th, which I'm now trying to rebrand it the financial forecast, not 5-year forecast, since they're not calling that anymore. You can go to the next slide, Brett. Thank you. Just some quick business updates of what's going on in the everyday. So SCView, that's our new platform that houses all of our financial comings and goings, as well as our document management. And as I mentioned before, we'll be doing some of our HR onboarding and other just key business functions through there. But I wanted to start slow just to get the everyday things taken care of. So I did go out and do some one-on-ones with the main staff that will hit this for about an hour individually last week at different points in time. Then we had an admin training session on Thursday last week, and then the staff at large again for kind of round 2 on Friday, just to make sure everyone is really feeling comfortable with all of it as it is new. But so far the feedback is good. I think people are already seeing the amount of time that they're going to save, which is good for me. You know, being the spearhead of everything new, what's it going to be like? You know, everyone seems to be on board, so that's good. So there will be some follow-ups that I'll have to do as well, but I just told everyone, you know, we're here to help you through that. Any follow-ups they need, we'll be there, and just continuing to roll it out. We did get an advance on our spring property taxes. I was wondering if they're actually going to make it happen in February, so we got a $2.4 million advance. And I may even actually try to throw another advance request in there so we get the rest in March as opposed to April, but we'll see. I was told when I requested in January they wouldn't have enough money in the bank to do that, so we'll see. I could do another request though. Never hurts to ask, right? So that's nice, and again, just for, you know, some history of context, the last time I believe an advance was ever asked for and received was February fiscal 21. So again, just kind of resetting that. It's really just lost interest if we don't have that. So, and then did have a brief conversation months ago, which I think we kind of touched on it a prior board meeting. But I did have a follow-up with what's our copier vendor, Millennium Business Solutions. So we're just kind of talking about restructuring our lease agreement. One of those is right-sizing equipment. We have some copiers that are just really more bigger than we need. So they're not going to be any slower. They're just smaller and less expensive. So they'll kind of retrofit and get that out of here, get the new stuff in. They also have what's called cloud faxing, which is really cool. So we can email an address and it'll send a fax more digitally versus the old school landline. So that should save us some money too on the actual phone bill for the archaic fax lines we have going. And then this will be kind of a permanent shift from purchasing and maintaining our equipment every couple of years and spending 20-some thousand on a copier, because they kind of ran through the service costs for our cell phone machines, and it's pretty high because we just have to keep footing the money. So this is the one time in my life I'd say at least makes more sense to own it from this perspective. And really the monthly rate when we switch everything won't be that much more. That'll be at a future time though. We're still getting the final things ironed out. I just don't like pushing contracts over the finish line at the last minute, so I would expect that in March. So that's just kind of the everyday business coming and going next month. So this is where we'll see some different numbers here. So we are tracking to a slightly unfavorable variance to the October forecasted expenses, so about 2% over. Still on $27-ish million that I like to be within less than 3, so we're good there. Our January expenses were just over 2.8, pretty heavy month. And just again, I always like to recall what we forecasted in October, just over 27.7. We are looking at 28.3, and we'll go over the reasons why in just a few moments here in the actual forecast presentation. But again, 2% on such a high number, well within the realm of some margin of error there. Then in the revenues, this is the one time we'll see, I think, a favorable variance like this, and I'll always take a favorable variance on the revenue of 8.9%. And that mainly has to do with the devaluation payment calculation, which we'll dive into in a moment here. And as you can see, real low revenue month for us in January, so this is a real red month. As we compare what we're going to be forecasting in just a moment to what we saw in October, actually 2.2 million over, which is awesome. And again, now that we really have come to understand the reason why, which we'll talk about in a moment, that'll give us a much more accurate projection moving forward. And our ending cash for January of 26 was just over 5 million. And then the last slide is just our interest. Not tracking quite as well as I think last year. I think the star rates last year were like 5.25%. We're under 4 now, so just with lower principal in there, it's just not working as hard. It's good for us borrowers in our everyday life every time the Fed cuts rates, but for us here in the business office on the earning side, it's the double-edged sword. So, but we're still earning free money, as I call it. So that's just always working in the background, and I'm hoping the advance that we got for February will help boost that back up there. So that's the monthlies, and then Garth, if you wouldn't mind switching over to the main forecast slide deck here for me, I share with you also. I just shared it with you, it's not linked on there. sir. Perfect. Okay. So this is where we're going to get into the weeds a little bit, and I think this is probably the most proud forecast work I've done. Well, I'd say 18 to 20 hours into just looking over everything from one final glance here, and it certainly made me grow. And I think this was just kind of that critical moment, line in the sand of find every last little thing we can clean up, kind of turn everything on its head and reset our trends here. So as we move forward, everything is kind of built on this kind of new baseline, if you will. And so speaking of trends, you know, as we look at the revenue, especially for our like valuations for the PUP properties, I mean, every other year it's up, down, up, down, up, down. So for me, that's not fun because there's no real trend. There's really one that we'll see here as far as revenue goes when we get into that. But one of the main themes here again is just some of the changes in how we're accounting for certain things, as I mentioned at the work session, and charging certain places in different ways that we previously had done before, as well as booking revenue that same way. So we'll go through that a little bit by little. You can go to the next one. And just a couple reminders, again, we have to file these twice per year. And again, in this fall, which will be one more new thing, it'll be August that we have to do the first one of the year. But the second one will always be in February moving forward. So this is like our forecast update. And we are just talking about expenses, revenues, and ending cash for the general fund only. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. You can go to the next one. Thank you. So I'm visual. I like to just kind of see the meat and potatoes of everything in one place. Still seeing that trend line going down as far as our ending cash goes. But the middle of this forecast is looking a lot more favorable than we saw in October as a result of the reduction plan we put in place. So it's a very good thing to kind of right size our expenditures as we still continue to address this loss of revenue problem. Still going to have an ending cash within this 5-year forecast, just certainly not to the tune of what we saw. But the story isn't really that much different in that we're deficit spending every year still. We have to make up that gap. And again, you'll see in a moment here the efforts made to right-size the expenditures, I think, are valiant here. And that's all we can do is just continue to find those little things that help. But again, the revenue shortfall is really the bigger theme here. You can go to the next one. So one thing we didn't talk about in October, but we did talk about this last week at the work session, is being a little bit more sophisticated in our enrollment projections, because this will affect our funding formula from the state aspect here. And we're using a couple of different data sets, including live birth, kindergarten enrollment, open enrollment, and the cohort survival method, which we did last week, which just shows the incoming classes versus the size of the outgoing classes. And right now, those outgoing classes are larger than the ones coming in on average there. And just societally, as we've discussed, people are just having less and less kiddos. So our enrollment is set to go down, and I've seen that in just about every other district in Hamilton and Claremont County alike. So our initial forecast in October and prior was kind of flat line projections around the 1,700 number, but you can see it's going to be a lot lower, even than what we thought in the fall there. Go to the next one. So again, I'm a big visual learner. I like to kind of do the macro level views first here and just kind of see the basics of where does our money come from. So our largest source is from real estate taxes, and they classify that in the Class 1, Class 2 properties. So again, that's our residential and agricultural for Class 1. Class 2 is our business and commercial. And then the public utility or pub properties is our Duke Energies and obviously the plants. So that's another thing that makes us really unique. We have a lot of things working sort of against our favor in that particular category as well, just with being one of the only districts with 2 plants, the other one, and then they both closing on top of it, as we both know. And one thing I did recently learn, again, growth is good. For Class 1, Class 2 property owners, if they want to contest their property values when they're released by the auditor, they can do that, but you still have to legally pay what you owe. You have to deal with the aftermath later if you go to Board of Revision. But PUP, they can say, no, we're challenging that valuation, and they are actually not required to pay taxes owed. And then it gets into the arbitration and all the red tape of fighting their values here. So we could pull up a visual of our PUP valuations, but I mean, that's really the thing that's been up 10 million, down 70, up 10, down 17. It's all over the place. And And I think it's because they can sort of play that game of, we'll deal with it later, we'll have to pay what we owe right now. Then the second largest comes from our state funding to the school foundation. That's relatively going to remain where we're seeing there. That will potentially get lower, though, as Mr. Daniels mentioned, as our valuations go up. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And our state reimbursements for property tax credits. So that's our homestead and rollback owner-occupied credits, as well as the payments we get in regards to deregulation and phasing out those tangible personal property tax payments that we used to get. So for those of you who haven't heard of that, that was a new thing for me as well. Businesses that used to have like machine shops and large equipment, I'm sure Zimmer wrote the same thing, that you had to pay taxes on the inventory and equipment in addition to the overall property tax, which got phased out. So we're still seeing some reimbursements. That's the one solid trend that we do see a revenue decline in. And then all other revenue, there are some nice surprises we have covered in there as well. And we're going to go into those specifics right now. So without putting everything I'm saying into a slide deck, the full forecast report is up on board docs, and I did type in all of the real detailed assumptions and changes from October for those of you who want to read. But again, I like to just be more oral and less typing words on a presentation for our sake. So as we look at our property taxes in general, our general property tax, we're pretty on par with what we forecast in October. We're set to receive a little bit over. PUP is what's really changed. Again, that's really the moving goalpost that went up by $10 million, the valuation. So that's good news for us. That yields higher collections. And the one big change here as we forecast forward, especially for the general property tax, is the valuation increases. We can model whatever percentage we want. With the forecasting software company, we do seminars with them, and they go all across the state, so they have like the real boots on the ground intel of what's happening statewide. And they mentioned they have not seen an overall valuation increase of less than 27% on these reappraisal cycles and update cycles. So we were a little bit beneath that in the October forecast, so I went a little more aggressive, up to 20% in our valuation increases. It could be more. Again, we're not on the floor, so that's not going to be terribly detrimental to the projections if it's higher than that. But again, we will pick up that inside millage growth to some extent. And again, those futures of the forecast, we don't know what the inflation is going to look like, but that will be offset by whatever the inflation is. So those are a little bit up in the air based on those factors there. We don't know what they're going to do in 29 in the next update there. But moving down to the unrestricted grants and aid, this is probably the biggest change in assumption here. Two things, we're actually receiving a little bit more in our school foundation payments, but the big change here, which we really got into the weeds in at the work session, is the devaluation payment we get from the state. As just a quick refresher, I just noticed the payments were not very consistent in terms of the amount, and I just really wanted to look into how that's actually calculated and got that intel there. So what was left for me in the short time that I was able to build the October forecast was a projection of about $700,000 of the payment, but that has been uncovered to look like $1.6 million for fiscal 26 and just over 1.7 in fiscal 27. So that's probably the most positive outlook to our revenue change there. And I circled those, or I should say squared those in green as the positive, but also that is still wrapped up in this current biennium budget language. So if you look in that same line item over to red, those last 3 years, I've backed off that payment by about 50% just because I'm not holding my breath for the state to not find more ways to take money away from us. So that's going to be the one thing we'll just have to be transparent about and keep our eye on as we approach the next biennium. But I'd rather prepare for the worst rather than think it's going to be business as usual and then they knock on the door and say you get nothing. But that's really what's going on there as far as like the big shift of being higher on the revenue side there. The state reimbursements for property tax credits, this is pretty much a verbatim story from the October forecast. This is the one trend we can see where the revenue has declined. This fiscal year we'll get about $3.1 million total for those deregulation and ZPP payments. That is what's peeling off by $332K every year. And in fiscal 36, those will be gone. So the only thing in that line item left will be the homestead rollback credits, which will be about $980,000. So 10 years from now, I know that's pretty far out, that's what that's gonna look like, possibly under 7 figures there. So that's a real thing that we have to plan for, because it is happening. That's the one bar graph, you'll see a consistent down and not up and down. And then lastly, the real big game changer here in the all other operating revenues, again, not captured in the October forecast, simply because we didn't have the intel at the moment, but we've talked about the TIF payments that we unearthed all the way from tax year 22 till now. So if those are received in fiscal 26 as we expect them to, that'll be a $337,000 positive outlook. Then those TIFs should be about 197 moving forward once they're caught up. We also have the U.S. Grant Career Center revenue. We've received the first half of that this year is about 65,000, so I'm forecasting 130 or so just for this year to keep it conservative. But again, the more those classes grow in the catalog, that revenue stream could grow. So, you know, just hats off to Mr. Daniels for helping that go, because that's a positive and just kind of out of the box revenue stream there that helps combat those deregulation phase outs there. But we also have our shared service agreements from Felicity that are boosting that up by about $50K a year that were not in the forecast, in addition to the Cincy Children's rent that we received in the tune of $35,000. So some big changes there, and so you'll see in fiscal 27 it backs off because of those TIFs. It'll just be more up to date versus a 2 years late payments all lumped into one. So that's kind of the outlook here, where we're going to be up above water a little bit, above the 27 million, but again, you start playing that fall off the scale game due to the TPP and deregulation phase outs there. And one other thing that is in there before we go to expenses, we are now accurately recording pay-to-play fees as revenue in that all other revenue. That's the one where they're looking at is like a reduction of transportation expenses, so it's kind of washing out. I'd rather look at it separately, so we'll see higher expenses as a result in the same token, but I just think that's a more accurate accounting practice as far as that's concerned. And Garth, you can go ahead, and then it's small on that screen, but this is one of my favorite visuals in the tools we have. You can build as many forecast scenarios as you want compared to each other. So this is the current projections that I'll bring it to you for approval tonight compared to what we saw in October. And this is the real big thing, just to kind of show you what's different. So again, we didn't know what our tax year valuations were going to be. Those usually come at the end of December. So the PUP going up by $10 million is obviously a good thing. But you'll see the unrestricted grants and aid, that's really where you see that outlier of now actually knowing how they calculate that payment and getting into the tax code weeds. That's really the big game changer right there. And also the all other revenues, all that work we did in the reduction plan to identify new revenue streams is in there as well. So the cumulative effect, lots of black, that's what I like to see. And then on the expenses, we'll see lots of red, which I like to see. But again, the ultimate theme here is still that we're outpacing that revenue. So we go to the next slide, Garth, thank you. And I'll try to go through expenses quickly here. This is just, again, so many new things that I won't have to go through when we see this again in August here, just because there's so much stuff I'm turning it on 10. So I appreciate you going on the journey with me. So as far as expenditure sources, we've said this many times, salaries and benefits. And I think this is kind of a good victory lap for the district, because this will be 72% for the ending for fiscal 26. We now have the fiscal 25 statewide data. That was 76.4 for us last year, so that's an obvious drop. And it's also underneath the state average of 79.9. So we're about 8 points beneath the state average for the fiscal 25 numbers. So I think that's a good look for us. And purchase services, I don't think there's any other district that won't see this as their second largest. So this is everything else that's not a tangible thing that we're paying someone else to do for us. But we are trying to, again, address those as part of all the reduction plan business as well. We go to the next one. Thank you, Mr. Shanklin. So to kind of go through these a little bit more in detail, salaries, this was again that final line in the sand. So the first retirement incentive payment that was made for all the folks that left, that was made in September before I arrived, and it was actually coded as a salary, but because we're paying an external company to sponsor that program, talked to a few other treasurers, and it was my inclination too that it should be in purchase services, so we're gonna make a corrective posting for this year. Cause the other thing to account for there is if our salaries would have still stayed inflated with that being baked in there, your projections for benefits would go up too, because benefits pretty much follow salaries. So again, this was like that big final shake to put everything in the right bucket, so to speak. So we can project the benefits a lot more accurately as well. So you can see the actual fiscal 25 numbers from salaries to 26. That's a huge savings. So if anyone wants to see what's going on and how the buyout affected things, there it is right there. And then the reduction plan as well, looking into 27, you know, we're actually not going to spend more than what we did in fiscal 25 until fiscal 30. So I think that's another just responsible outlook on our expenses, and benefits are kind of following the same thing there. And again, we do forecast a little more aggressively on the healthcare increases just because you never know. But better be prepared than say it's only going to be 2%, it turns out to be 12. And you don't see it coming. And those are bills you can't not pay. Lastly, in the big changes, again, purchase services, so about $390K moving from salaries to there for the incentives, for the retirement. This is that also area where they're reducing expenses for the pay-to-play fees with how it's being accounted for, so that's up by 100K, but the pay-to-play revenue's up 100K. Special ed expenses are a little bit higher as well, which we were discussing. And the big change here, which actually still kind of took me by surprise, was our utility bills. So I knew they were going to be higher. I forecasted a 30% increase in October. It's still coming in higher than that. So I actually had Amy run this for me. So our utilities increased from December to January, just the total bills went up $44,500 just because of how cold it's been. Electric and gas specifically was 26 too, just for that 1 month. And since we're building arrears, I think February is going to be even higher, because I guess this January is the coldest one on record since '77. So I mean, we're averaging about 60 grand a month for utility bills. So to like kind of put that out there for people's perspective, you know, everyone's seen theirs go up, ours are going up on a much larger scale, and again, can't not pay it. And again, just kind of carrying those increases forward now that we know where the dust is settling as far as utilities go. So that is where we're seeing that big uptick, and those 3 fiscal years are outlined in red, because those are the 3 years that capture that buyout payment, and then they'll start to taper off in 29. And then without getting any much further in the weeds, supplies is looking pretty on par. Did talk to Mr. Wolf about some device recycle or device purchase cycles. We hadn't had that discussion in the short time I was here in October, so they do need to buy some new laptops for next year, but you'll see that start to scale back down. And we're also chipping away the general fund expenses from the reduction plan as well. So that is kind of the overall large scale picture. The last thing I want to hit on here is the other objects category. One of the last things I unearthed is that when you get your property tax settlements, they actually put an expense on there for the property tax collection fees itself. Those were previously recorded as like reductions of revenue too. So if you had like 5 million received and it was 100K to collect it, they're just putting 4.9 in revenue. I'm now separating that out again, kind of that same idea. So for context, it's kind of staggering. It's anywhere from like 55 to 75 in the spring and fall for the property tax collection fees. So those are being recorded there as well. And that'll be, again, just one of the last big changes in practice as far as the accounting piece goes moving forward. So again, a little bit higher than what we expected, but pretty easy to see where it's happening. Utilities, again, is the thing that kind of struck me. $44,000 in a month increase, that's pretty insane. So, yeah. So, if you go to the next slide, Gar. So, again, that other base forecast comparison, you can see, yes, we're higher than what we thought in October, but the subsequent years, this is the reduction plan in place here. And I don't see any reason that we don't continue to stay the course there. And again, it's the salaries benefits that really see the savings there. So that can be revisited at any time just to show you, we've uncovered some revenue we didn't know was there. We're doing right to make sure we decrease our expenditures. And then lastly, just to kind of wrap this all up, you can still see that revenue surplus and deficit is still red, just not as aggressive as it was as we saw in October. So this does buy us some time, but again, if we just sit idly and do absolutely nothing, we will still be in the actual ending red fiscal 13. So that's probably the longest presentation you'll hear me give on a forecast, but there's a lot of things that were new, so I just wanted to take you into my world for a little bit. In August, I hope to be about half that, but we'll see. We'll see what else. But, 2 weeks versus 4 months of being able to get my eyes on things, feel a lot more confident when we're able to project here. So, appreciate your attention on that. If you have any questions, fire away. I know that's a lot. So.
A lot of positive changes.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think, and as we've talked about, dude, it's like the little things like the TIFs, the fact that we have to kind of go through so many hoops just to get the money we're owed anyway. It's just one more thing that we have to deal with that hopefully we can maybe affect some positive change for, but not hold my breath on that one just yet. But that is where we stand for the forecast, and I believe that is all my report/action items. If there are any questions, fire away. Any questions?
Just
Absolutely, thank you.
we'll file that, I guess.
Yeah.
That's after it's approved. And do you expect anything coming back from the state?
Other than, hey, this looks a little different. But again, I feel extremely confident in explaining that, and I say it jokingly, but not at the same time. I kind of want to put them to the task and be like, tell me how the evaluation payment works, and just see, I'd just be curious to see if they knew. And just put, just say, if you had 2 weeks to figure this out initially upon transitioning to a role, let me know. You know what I mean? So I think that's really the big thing, but it definitely puts Mr. Daniels and myself out of their induction plan weeds for quite some time. So
Good job.
hopefully,
And I think we're gonna continue to look for efficiencies.
yes.
We're gonna continue to look for, we're not putting anything, we're not putting anything back. Clearly, anything we add, it cascades down that whole 5 or 6 years. So if we add a position back with the average of, we use about 85,000 ish. That cascades 85 times 30% across that. So putting something back has a detrimental effect. So we hold, and just like we're doing at Monroe with the enrollment dip, we'll just follow that along. And I do think we still continue the strategic planning, and we work hard on what our community thinks the footprint of the school should look like over the next 2 to 5 years. And I think that gives us time to intentionally slow down and listen to what our community thinks we should look like in the next 3 years.
As long as the funding stays.
Yeah, well,
Correct.
yes.
And I think that's the big thing for me. Again, like trends are great. Like I can run reports till I'm blue in the face and see what we spent, and that's great. But as far as what's coming in and a big chunk of that being out of your control, it's not.
Your
a fun
magic
place
ball's
to be
not
in.
that good, is it?
Yeah, well, I too, people like to say this is a business. I guess in a sense it is, but again, we're not in control of the prices we sell or the inventory we produce. You know what I mean? But there's not much that we can do on that side of things. And I think that's what people need to understand. Yeah. So if this were a business, it would just close. You know what I mean? It's not the same.
Right.
It's not the same thing. We are educating kids. It's a much different sphere. So
Good.
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve items 7A through 7F.
Also moved. Second.
Any other discussion at this point? Okay, roll call.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Dubois.
Yes.
Ms. Grazer.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes. Human resource items.
Yes, 8A, we'd like to thank Kelly Heckard for her service, 28 years with the district. She will be retiring at the end of the year. And then Nakia Milton will be resigning as of yesterday. She was for personal reasons. We will be bringing on board, these are replacements, these are not new positions. Kelly Maston will be a full-time bus aide. We started her on February 10th for a prior resignation. And Rachel Reinhardt, classified paraprofessional, step 1, for a prior resignation started on February 10th. We're always happy to have paraprofessionals as subs. So we're adding Mackenzie Roscoe as needed, a sub for absences in our paraprofessionals there. We will be adding, requesting the board for 2 long-term subs at BA0 for 2 positions that are open. For stipends, hiring our winter athletic director, assistant athletic director, and our spring assistant athletic director. It's the same person. And then on supplemental contracts, there's one change, a position change. Liz Ensley moving from an assistant to a assistant middle school boys track and field. Those are the superintendent's recommendations for human resources.
Okay, it is recommended the Board of Education approve items 8A through 8F.
I'll second.
Flip-flop at 5.
Yeah.
Flip-flop.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Dufault?
Yes.
Ms. Grazer?
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes. And first reading of policies.
We did go over these over the work session. Name, image, and likeness is a big one out there. That is the new law OHSAA proposed to pay student athletes. In there are lots of provisions of what kids can and can't do while they're here and on their team. Moving along, 3440 and 4440 are the same. You'll see quite a few of these. These have to do with the Auditor of State guidelines. Districts could allow employees who travel to earn frequent flyer miles, hotel points, etc. Cannot cost the district any more money. Oftentimes you'll see we don't have a lot of travel as a district, very little, but when a hotel has the convention, an employee can earn the points, and sometimes by being a member they actually get a better rate for the district. You cannot go out of your way though to use a Hyatt just so you can get points. 5112 has to do with kindergarten. We kicked off our kindergarten nights. We had a really nice attendance at Locust Corner, and we had a youngster who said, I wouldn't be able to come because your cutoff was August 1st. Now the cutoff is the first day of school. So kindergarten can start the first day of school, and as you can imagine around the county, we're all very close to the same first day of school. Used to float from August 1st to September 30th. There are still some things you can do for acceleration. That's in the law. We'll abide by that. So this is kindergarten, sponsored by our very own
Can I ask you a question?
Mr. Bird.
Does that mean they have to start kindergarten at 5 or they just can't?
They can. Compulsory age is 6.
Okay, gotcha.
It's still 6, right, Doc? Dr. Hollingsworth, still
That's
6?
correct.
Yes. Okay.
Man,
My
you
wife
threw
threw
me
me my own.
for the
My
twins.
counterpart threw me a curveball at an open meeting. Grading, thanks to Mr. Stewart and Dr. Hollingsworth. The next one is 5421. A lot of this comes out of the Governor's Merit Scholars and capturing how you grade. We do standards-based grading for our youngest learners, K1, letter grades 2 through 12. So for our academic and our social, we do meet standards, developing towards standard, or beginning progress towards standard. And then everybody else gets a letter grade. You'll see the weighted and the unweighted there. And then how grades should be done, pass, fail, and then grading LAP students. Just that's about some grace for students who are not native English speakers in their first year inside of, I think it's up to 3 years in the public school system. Moving on, class rank. This has to do completely with the Governor Merit Scholarship. Those are the scholarships they give to the top 5 or 10% depending on the size of your school. And those are the $5,000 renewable scholarships to go to a state school in Ohio. So every year we submit the names, Carol Ann does. What we had to do is decide a tiebreaker. So we chose our areas, but this is all due to Governor Merit Scholarship. Budget preparation, that's what Mr. Floyd did this evening, but really more so, that's what you approved in January, right? The budget for the year?
Oh, the tax budget,
The tax
yeah,
budget.
yeah.
And then there's some limits on carryover. I don't know if you remember, but when the legislature was going through, again, not a problem that we have, let's be clear. There are districts who have 100% carryover balance, which means they have a full year of expenses saved up. Not a problem we have here. but it allows us to roll a little bit over, and then you can save it for those things like when you have a insurance plan or a Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Purchasing and bidding just up the limits. Two things to notice here. School districts, I guess, were playing funny games with any buildings, like other property. So for us, the middle school is considered a building, and so is the stadium. So they were doing funny business with their stadium, the way they were bidding, and not their schools. And then, so that's really all that's here, is that you treat every property has to follow the school bidding guidelines. Federal grants, this just upped the amounts, I think, to meet law. So micro purchases, up to $15,000. They cannot exceed $15,000. Small purchases move up to $350,000. And we talk about sealed bids. So when Steve did the bidding for the running of the cable, it wasn't a sealed bid because it was under $250,000. You know, probably demo of a building would be a sealed bid for us as a good example.
Having experience doing it with federal funds, I would never do it again anyway, so.
And again, that's a great point. That's a federal funds.
Yeah.
6423, use of the credit card, that goes back to the frequent flyer miles again. That's all that is. Again, auditor of state. Use of district tax exempt certificate. This is a new policy for us. Really, we have policies in place, but should somebody make a choice and not, we can reimburse them up to $500, but we don't reimburse their tax. The only people that can use the tax exempt card is anyone that takes either the PO or the credit card itself. We only have 2. There are districts where multiple people carry them around. It's a good thing to only have 2 cards. So you can't really get tax exempt unless you have it with you. Vendor relations, same thing. Frequent flyer miles. And then affinities, rewards, 6465 is really spelling out that whole idea that you can't, you can't go out and choose your hotel to get miles because that's what's in your best interest. And then I referenced this a little earlier. This is new. This is our AI policy, and in our district, based on our composition, Steve Wolf is considered the systems engineer. So he is chiefly responsible for the AI policy. But as shared, it's going to be a task force of teachers and admin. It would be a mistake not to equip our children with AI. The world is changing. But also, if I could get on educator soapbox, 70s, 80s, 90s, with the computer coming to life, people thought that there would be mass extinction in jobs. I think we are seeing a correction in the job market, but it's very, very hard to replace people. But our kids need to know how to use the AI appropriately and inappropriately. There will be restrictions in the military. There will be restrictions in their career path. There will be restrictions that colleges and universities put in place. So we will read these a second time, publicly again at the next meeting, and then they will go into our policy manual. This gives the public 30 days if they have concerns to look them up and then come address the board.
All right. So 30 days to read them all. Again.
The public, you've seen them.
I said again.
Again. I won't do all that again.
I want to read the AI one again, definitely.
Well, we chose to put all the terms in there on purpose.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Next is the OHSAA membership. So it is recommended the Board of Education approve the resolution of the Ohio High School Athletic Association membership for the 2026-2027 school year. Okay. Second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Bob? Yes.
Fraser? Yes. Zimmerman?
Yes. Communications report.
Well, bear with me because I haven't been able to speak for a while, so this is going to be a little bit longer one than normal. Next next week, starting on Monday, something called Public Schools Week is going to happen throughout the southwest area of Ohio. These slides here were prepared by the Butler County Educational Service Center. They did this last year. Ross Local Schools participated in a lot this year through the PR group that I go to out of Hamilton County ESC. We're going to expand it to a bunch of different schools around the Southwest District. So what is Public Schools Week? It's basically just a week-long celebration of public schools. You'll see a little bit here in a minute the kind of social media posts that we make. The templates are all roughly the same for every district that's participating in this. And we're all encouraged to go and just kind of interact with each other's and share each other's to kind of help build public school pride throughout this area. The goals for this campaign, they just want to make sure that we, make a united effort amongst all of us, increase engagement, create a positive buzz, and support each other as a team, which we usually do during those meetings, but now we do that out in front and open doors and on social media. They gave us specific guidelines for messaging. We can customize these to our branding, which we did, you'll see here in a second, and we want to just kind of show off our kids and the things that we do and the things that make New Richmond New Richmond. So they gave us these through Canva, which was very easy to customize them. So they're each labeled by each day. This one will be the one that starts on Monday. This is, I believe, from our homecoming parade last year, that photo. This is the Tuesday one, or no, this is an alternate for Monday. It goes both or either. That is from the football game, I believe, against Indiana last year. This is for Tuesday, where you ask people to reply to you. What kind of program or class did you take that made your New Richmond experience? I got the band on there, athletics, and I got the drama club on there at the bottom as well for play. The Strong Schools, Strong Communities one, I found a photo of them doing tug of war. I felt like that was pretty appropriate considering the circumstances, so I was glad to use that. That was at the Clash of the Classes before homecoming this year. And then we have a dedicated professionals one to honor the staff members throughout the district that really make everything go. We have our classified employee of the month on the left and the Monroe Elementary staff members pictured there. Got a shout out from Dr. Coons for their efforts to help clear the snow that we kept getting for most of January. Then finally, on Friday, it asks you to just tell you where you went to school and show your pride in the graduation photos. This was from last year. So it's just something small and easy to build throughout the week that they gave to us to help all of us get together around a general common theme and try to drive some conversations about public school pride. Speaking of conversations, this was referred to by Mr. Daniels earlier. This is a newsletter that is going out tomorrow to talk to people in our community about the Clermont County, or the CCMEP program, which is done through the Ohio Means Jobs Office. It is a rather comprehensive email that describes what it is. It's just to help people who need help with job placement. It gives you information on what the program is, how to figure out if you're eligible. It shows applied skills where you can use those at, and it gives you a bunch of resources here for our community members to learn about Clermont County's program, the data to see how effective it's been, webinars, trainings, and other coaching resources as well for anyone in our family or who needs them.
So WIOA, which is where program performance data, WIOA and CCMEP, we always suggest that people apply to both because you could qualify for one or both depending on the composition of your family. So if you're like, for example, if you have younger siblings, that's one of them requires that, so you could be in that program. Both of them do run out of money typically towards the end of the year, or if it's not accessed, it has to be given back. So we're excited. This is really about, we talk a lot that we can be, it's terrible, broke and bougie, but we can be broke and we can do great things. And we should be a place for our community when people are unsure, our youngest people. They go to college, they try it for a year, they don't like it, it doesn't meet their interests, and we can be that place to come home to for that group of individuals, and also for anyone in our community that is struggling, that may have been let go, whether they are 30, 40, 50, 60. That come home, we're here, non-judgmentally, and the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Center can help you on your journey to finding, either reemployment, reskilling, re-education, or some path for you and your family.
This will go out tomorrow. I believe it's scheduled for around 11:30 or noon or so. I have to check the exact time. One of the other things that I've been tasked with doing this month is creating a one-stop shop for all of our class fees. This is what our fee guide will look like. This is the one for the middle school. They're all basically formatted the same. The high school's is much longer, but this will go out to each building's website, and then there will also be a centralized place on the main district page where parents can go to find all of these, as well as why we assess fees and things like that. So that was the middle school one. The high school one is 1, 2, 3 pages long, and it does not have athletics on it yet, so the athletic pay-to-play fee will be added. There is a preschool fee listed at the bottom. That will be combined with the elementary one, so there will be another page of this. I just don't have the elementary fees quite yet. I need to get one final confirmation on those before I add them on here. So this will go to our website soon.
And we will bring those to you in March to officially approve. They lived inside of the course guide, and it's just, they're buried. I think for us, if a family wants to know what they need to budget for in August, this is really quick. They take their child's courses, their grade level. I got a preschooler, a 5th grader at Monroe, and I got a 9th grader. They can tell what their fees are quickly.
It's very nice.
The course guide for the high school curriculum was 38 pages long. So, and the fees were spread out through all of it. The middle school was about a little bit less than that, and there were discrepancies even in those two. There were the same classes that had different course descriptions, different fees listed, so it was a good time for us to kind of recompile all of that and make sure that it's correct before we pushed it out.
Is there technology fee on there too?
Yeah, right
Yep.
there at the bottom,
Okay,
because
I
it's
can't
all
see.
students.
I can't see.
Yeah, all students are assessed at 25 tech fees.
Back in the AI presentation that we did a few minutes ago on that policy, it was mentioned that it would be approved to our app directory if we use it. The app directory is getting a bit of a refresh because it was starting to bother me. So right now, this is live, I believe, right now. This is a new directory where we have a Google Sheet in the background that we can just edit as we need to, removing things and adding things, and it will update this live. So earlier today, I added, starts with my kids bank. I didn't know what that was. So I asked Miss Story or Miss Carey to tell me what it was, and she sent me a description for it, which I'm trying to find. So this is a banking platform that teaches financial literacy and personal money management. So I can just copy that, go here. This is what the sheet looks like. I put it there. I'll format that later. But if I refresh this, when it loads, it's in there. So that's all we have to do, is just have to edit that Google Sheet. And what the future of this looks like right now, it just lists all of them. That's a bit much. I'm going to have it break it down by building, so you can just click on which ones are used where, and have it with more statistics so you can see how many are used in each building and things like that. It'll be more visually appealing than just a list. And it was just a long list of about 75 black bars before. So this, I think, this has been a project. And I don't code very well, so Gemini has helped tremendously with that. And it has helped tremendously with this. This is our current preschool, kindergarten, and new student registration page. I went to a conference back in September where they gave us examples of pages that do this right. And so, as soon as I can, we will launch this one. This, I believe, is this is the new registration page for the district. There's a temp photo back there. Obviously, it won't look like that. The registration has been broken down into 3 different buckets, like the new students here. This clip will take you straight to final forms. We'll get to kindergarten in a minute. Returning students will also be sent to update their information. It gives you a checklist, a lot easier to find and a lot easier to read, and some more resources like the transportation department, so you can find out bus information in the app, the boundary map, preschool information, and things like that. The colors and branding still need some work, and I want to make sure the information is accurate before we launch it. But one of the things that they suggested was this specialized kindergarten hub just for each individual kindergarten class. So welcomes them in, it reminds them of their age. I think we need to update this. I don't believe this is valid anymore. And then it gives them a step-by-step instruction on how to get into kindergarten. And then it shows them what kindergarten screening is, and then they also have the same resources that they did on the other page. So I just wanted to modernize that page. There's also a couple other ones that I'm going to try to bring forward in the future. We'll see how that goes, but I just wanted to show those off to you tonight before they went live. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I think one of the things that Garth has been tasked with really is that our website has to be ADA compliant. So I do believe that's why the team really dialed into Aptogee, because it does a lot of work. Currently, coaches have a lot of independent pages, and Garth has to either close those down or move those over, because a PDF, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't always ADA compliant.
Yeah.
So we have a deadline to meet. So,
Screen readers don't always read PDFs very well if they're embedded on the website, so you have to either make sure that they are ADA compliant or you don't put them on the website. And that applies to everything posted, including social media posts under district umbrellas after next April. If it is ran by somebody that we pay, they have to be ADA compliant. If you go into Thrillshare and you do it through the platform like all of our buildings do, it will be, because it'll help you do it for you. But if you have a bowling Twitter account, it will not. So that's when we need to decide if we either transition to parents and let parents run them, or if we just shut them down completely and take them inside. I know at least one school wants to shut down every other account besides the district account, individual buildings accounts, all the sports accounts, the athletic accounts. They want everything gone under just the district level, so it doesn't have to deal with it.
Sure.
But since we're small, we are over 50,000 people in our community, we have until next year. Cincinnati Public Schools, Dayton Public Schools, they have to do that by this April. So that'll be a fun future project for me.
thank you, Garth.
Thank you, Garth.
Yeah.
All right, board discussion.
I had one item for the board. May tends to be a ceremonial month, and it appears that there's not wiggle room to move the Choral Awards and Senior Recognition Concert on Monday, May 11th, and then on Monday, May 18th is the Senior Scholarship Dinner. I was wondering if the board would consider moving our meetings to Tuesday, May 12th, our work session, and our board meeting to Tuesday, May 19th.
Works for me.
I would also suggest that we potentially do something different on May 19th, if space is available to have the board meeting in the auditorium, so that we could do a small reception for our retirees and our governor's merit scholars. We will not know our valedictorian and salutatorian at that point, will we, Mr. Stewart? If it's on the others? No. So, but we will have all of our governor's merit scholars, and we will be able to do our retirees. So if the board has an appetite to do that, we will make a note on our website and move those dates. And we will also make sure to message that meeting, we will start now to invite the 4 or 5 retirees that night is, we'll do a small reception, similar to what we did for Mr. Wells. They can bring their families, and then I'll ask their principals, because their principals know them best, to come on stage and share a few, share just a few words. And I think when you give your career to a place, 28 years, 30 some for others, like Jeff, they have a big impact, and I think we owe it to them to present them with a small, we're not rich and we shouldn't spend a lot of money, but a small token of our appreciation for what they poured into our children, into our families, into our community. So we will make those adjustments.
Yeah, I would just look, if there's other opportunities to recognize other students or staff or whatever, this would be a good time to celebrate it all.
Okay.
So think about that too.
I absolutely can think about that. Thank you for being flexible.
Anything from the board?
Adjourn.
All right, next on the agenda is motion to adjourn. I think we already got a motion. Second. And we can do the roll call. I don't think there's any discussion.
Mr. Duval.
Yep.
No surprise. Ms. Grazer. And Mr. Zimmer.
Yes.
7:28.